especially need people who work on products, work on and ship products. So if you like ship a smartwatch or a phone, or any kind of complex electronics or complex device, or advanced medical devices, we'd love for you to contact us and consider working here. So, and a very important point to emphasize is that you do not need to have prior experience on brains. So a lot of people think, well, I couldn't possibly work Nerlink because I don't know anything about how brains work. That's okay, you can learn, but we need software engineering, we need mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, like I said, chip design, robotics, and all the things that a company needs to work. So please send in your resume. Actually, it's not just engineering, obviously everything at Neuralink. So now let's also hear to questions. So we have questions that have been asked over the internet, and so we'll do live Q&A. So bring in Oshu from the Neuralink team. All right.
Hello, hello. Who's out there? This is my first time doing a live stream, so I don't know how any of this works. Currently, I'm watching the Neuralink progress update for summer of 2020.
All right, so if you have any questions, please submit your questions to the Neuralink Twitter account, and we will try to answer as many questions as we can.
I sent a question into the
next hour.
Neuralink Twitter account, so let's see if one gets answered. I only had a few people interact with my tweet, but you know, we'll see.
All right, so the first question is, how is the spike detection implemented? Is it on the ASIC? Is it hardware and software updatable?
Oh.
Yeah, I can answer that. So I'm Paul. I work had a few different hats. I've worked a little bit on digital chip design, and more recently working on some of the algorithms, trying to decode the signals from the brain. And the spike detection algorithm, there's historically been many ways of detecting spikes. Typically, people will record data offline and then look for characteristic shapes. But here, we're interested in detecting spikes online. And there's a number of simple algorithms that you can do, for example, like detecting just a threshold. And we've been interested in doing a little bit better than that. So we actually look for particular shapes, characteristic shapes that we think are spikes. And so we're doing this on the chip. It's for all 1,024 electrodes. There's bandpass filtering that's happening on the chip. So if you think of these as like little microphones sending audio information, we're basically filtering all of that in real time and then looking for these characteristic shapes. You can configure what sort of shapes you're looking for, and that information is what's being sent out. The raw information from the electrodes is way too much to send out over Bluetooth. So when you're seeing those beautiful spike rasters on the screen, those are the detections that we have coming straight from the chips.
Got it. And just for everyone who doesn't know, can you just explain at a basic level what a spike is?
Sure. So traditionally, people think of spikes or action potentials as the electrical events that happen in neurons, and as the primary form of communication between neurons. And so this is a hysteresis event where you have currents that flow and generate this. You can think of it as being a digital signal, a 1 or a 0 that's being sent in time, where neurons will send that signal to often thousands of recipient neurons.
Awesome, thanks, Paul. So I got a question from Toby on Twitter. He asks, what can be further done to simplify the device installation progress?
So we're working on making the device as small as possible, of course. With the robot,
it's cool to see this guy again. He was the surgeon from the first update.
Human surgeon.
So
we're hoping to make the process faster and safer.
Actually, it might be good for people to say,
if you guys haven't watched
who they are and what they do.
The mock-up that they had from last year, it was the mock-up behind the ear with the wires that went up into the head. They made a smaller one here. quite
that can be
this
done
one.
to make this
They made a smaller one for 2020, and it goes into your head, and it's super small. It's like I think they either said it was a quarter or a nickel sized, and it is chargeable at night. They plug it into something. They showed a diagram on it. I'm sure I'll make a video on this in sometime soon.
Hasn't been done in the past, I think probably just because like volumes of surgeries hasn't been needed. But specifically for us to scale up to many hundreds of thousands or millions of patients, we will need to automate with the entire surgery essentially.
Awesome, thank you, Ian. Garrett asks, what are some of the lower bandwidth activities to target first? Is it muscle movement? Is it auditory signals? What level of bandwidth is required?
My question, I doubt it will be answered.
There's a couple of.
Just to say who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Joey O'Doherty. I'm a neuroscientist and neuroengineer working on decoding from the brain. So there's some low-hanging fruit that I think can really be impactful to help many people's lives. And
Another cool thing that they did in the beginning is that they had, they showed 3 pigs. They had a pig that didn't have a Neuralink chip in their head. They had a pig that had a Neuralink chip and they took it out. And then they had a pig that had a Nerling chip in for 2 months now, and all of them were happy and healthy. And they showed them doing basically the same thing. But with the one with the chip, they showed you how they could read the brain patterns and like different signals that the brain would send out, especially when it was like sniffing on the ground. The brain would start going sporadic and would send massive signals out when it smelled like the hay or treats that they were giving to them.
So there's interesting questions long-term about whether you do decoding on head or on a phone or on a computer. Ultimately, so at 1,000 channels, it's possible to send all the spike data to a phone and do processing there. As this gets bigger and bigger, you're going to be more constrained by the radio, so you're going to push more of this on head, and that changes your programming model. But really, the APIs, you're getting either bin spikes, or you're getting raw waveforms, and that's like you can consume it basically like an audio feed.
Yeah, it's worth noting, like the lossless compression of the data stream is about 100 kilobits with 1,024 channels.
Excellent. So this one came up a lot, and this particular question is from Yosef, but will this technology ever be used for gaming?
Yeah, probably.
100%.
100%, yeah.
I think that a good benchmark of does it work well in humans is, can a quadriplegic, does it work well enough for them to play StarCraft? I think that's a good functional target. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll pull out back from the Twitter questions that are kind of funny. This is a question for the efficacy of the device. Right now, is the device limited to surface layers of the brain only, or can we go deeper? And if not now, what's holding us back from going deeper into the brain?
We are planning on modifying the device and the robot to be able to sew.
Currently, I'm just watching their progress
Right now,
update.
we're limiting ourselves only to the cortical
I really don't have anything planned to say. I did send in a question through Twitter, so I'm trying to see. I doubt it'll get answered, but I definitely want to see if it does. My question was from the video I made. Here, I'll just mute them for a second. My question was, will there be a possibility for the brain chip to download certain chemicals or programs that could help combat infectious diseases or viruses such as the COVID-19 virus in real time? And then I followed up with, to the point where pandemics wouldn't occur as they are. So I thought it was a relevant question for the current world. And so maybe they do answer it.
I guess about 3 or 4 millimeters into the cortex. So these electrodes are sensing from multiple layers within the cortex. There are deeper brain systems that are underneath your cortex, like the hypothalamus, and I think that is something we'd want to interface with for sure. that's going to be important for curing things like depression, addiction, that kind of thing, anxiety. So, but yeah, like I said in the presentation, overall we're aiming for a general purpose device, and really the thing that would change from interfacing with the cortex versus deep brain systems is kind of the length of the electrode. So we just need kind of longer wires and to adjust the robot in order to access deeper regions of the brain.
Ian, did you have
Now,
anything
so
to
the
add?
robot is designed, like the full length is like 7 centimeters, right? I mean,
Yeah, so right now we're designed for like 6 millimeters. The actuator itself isn't actually limited to 6 millimeters, it's much deeper. That's sort of in addition to scaling out sort of to the rest of the surgery, also scaling to deeper, which is mostly a sensing problem. So the ability to avoid deep vasculature is sort of an interesting problem that we're working on in the robotics world here. So yeah, lots of cool problems in the robot.
You're leading robot engineering.
Yeah, sorry, I'm Ian. I lead the robotics program here.
Robotism is best friend. All right, next question is, what is the most challenging problem that must be solved in order to meet Neuralink's ultimate goal?
Well, I think one of the hot problems is kind of say material science and especially the installation of the electrodes. What would you say?
Absolutely.
Also, even introduce yourself.
So I'm Felix Deku. I currently lead the microfabrication team. My team makes up of a group of process engineers and material scientists. And our job is to make the tiny wires, as Elon referred to them, what we call the threads that are implanted in the brain. And of course, the threads are made of conductors and insulators. And choosing the right material that is amenable to the brain and compatible to the brain is something that our team have expertise on, and we work seriously on interface engineering just to make sure that our layers are actually well thought through, well designed, and at the end of the day, when we implant the device, it will be actually functional for either reading or writing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important in terms of material science problems is making sure that the threads, the electrodes can last for decades in the brain, which is a tricky thing because it's a very corrosive environment, and you're in a dichotomy where you want to read and you want to sense electrical signals and you want to generate electrical signals, but you don't want to corrode the electrodes over time. So you need to have an insulating layer that is very robust, but also very, very thin. It has to be just the right amount of insulation, and it has to stay that amount of insulation over time. So that's why I think we think probably like a silicon carbide type insulator is probably the best long term from a material science standpoint. But silicon carbide is a tough material to work with, but that's probably the right choice long term. Would you say?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's also, apart from its electrical properties, they also help adhesion to metal layers and substrate. Another thing that we're also looking at is, since we're actually reducing the electric dimensions, the electric side, the actual side that actually speaks to the neuron, also has high resistance to the signal. So we actually look into material engineering that will reduce the impedance interface, so that we can actually have a very small electric side but still be able to speak clearly to the neuron.
And when you guys say thin, how thin?
How thin? So one strand of your hair is about 100 microns in diameter. We can think about dividing that into 20. So one of the thickness that we recognize is about 5 microns, and we have this possibility to go even thinner in the nearest future.
Yeah, we think we can probably go sub-micron.
So what they just said right there is that they were talking about how thick are the wires that are going into the brain. And I touched on this a little bit in my video, but he just said, think of a hair, and that's 100 microns, and divide that into, what, 5, 20, 40, 60, 80, yeah. So it's 5 microns is the width of the wire that actually would go into your brain. Cool stuff.
And this is going to be important for upgrades, because obviously if you get an early device, then by the time let's say you get version 1, probably by the time we have version 3 or 4, you want to upgrade. You wouldn't want version 1 of a phone, and 10 years later, everyone's got version 3 or 4. So it's going to be important to be able to remove the device and upgrade it over time. So over time, the Neuralink would do even more than it did before.
Awesome. So here's a question about the device. We have been talking a lot about read speeds and write, or we haven't talked about read or write device. You think of it like a computer.
When you say speed, what do you mean?
Like, how quickly can you read information from the brain, and how quickly can you write information in the brain?
Okay, so let's see. So one of the things to highlight is that
Well, DJ, what do you work on?
Yes, my name is DJ Todd. I'm leading implant electronics development.
The chip design.
And a chip designer.
Yeah.
Here. The prototype that we were showing, it has 1,024 channels. All of those channels are capable of recording and also stimulating. And in terms of recording, as Paul mentioned, we do have on-chip algorithms to do level of compression and extracting the signals of interest. In this case, spikes.
Wow.
Neural spikes.
Sure.
And those things are actually happening at a much faster speed than your brain even is processing those information.
Well, do you want to say like things like time resolution, like within how many milliseconds can you detect this spike?
This is pretty cool. I should probably do this more often.
So in terms of the signals that we're collecting, we're digitizing them at 20 kilohertz.
I'll try to leave a white screen on the
anywhere between about a millisecond in width, and so we sort of sample it at 20 times that speed. And we have analog to digital converters that divide that into 1024 levels, so 10-bit resolution. And the spike detection is done in less than 900 nanoseconds, which is really, really fast time. It's only sort of determined by the speed of the clock. And for making sure that our implant is low power, we're running them actually at a very slow speed. And then for stimulation, we can actually create any arbitrary waveforms with about 7 microseconds of resolution. So basically, whatever you want to draw, we can stimulate and generate those pulses through any combination of electrodes.
And this is just the version 0.9, or aspirationally version 1. As we go to version 2, 3, 4, these things will expand, I think, ultimately by orders of magnitude, many orders of magnitude.
Everyday Tesla asks, how big is the Nerlink team, and how much do you expect it to grow in the near future?
We're about 100 people right now. I think over time, there might be 10,000 or more people at Nerling. So I think,
So another thing is that they've been planning to expand, and that's another thing that they want to do through this update. They wanted to basically tell everybody, hey, come on, if you have a resume that you want to send on through, send it through. We'll see what we can do. Maybe we'll send you an offer. Obviously, I won't be getting an offer because I don't even know how to even talk like them.
Super, yeah. Even more, yeah.
I don't know. Another thing, guys, is that they started like 45, 50 minutes late.
It's 10-to-1 ratio.
The progress update was supposed to start at 6, and they didn't get on until like 6:50.
The system fare against various disturbances from the outside, like electrical, magnetic, Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's a good question.
Video.
Yeah. So the current version of the implant that we have is using Bluetooth low energy radio. So similar to any
Bluetooth low energy,
they are able to coexist with other devices that are using and sharing our same spectrum in 2.4 gigahertz. Obviously, as you imagine, when you go to concerts or there's just a lot of people, the signal quality does degrade because it is a pretty congested spectrum. So we are actually working on some new versions of the radio that are operating at different frequencies to be able to also send out a lot more data and have it be scalable to millions of electrodes. And then also in terms of sort of electromagnetic compatibility and interferences, obviously it's very important for us to coexist with other systems and just disturbances out there. So there are also well-documented guidelines from FDA that we'll be following and doing a lot of testing for.
And Fantastic. We're going to take an audience question.
Ooh,
Right
audience
away.
question. Here we go.
So we all want to play StarCraft using Neuralink, but what are some likely first applications?
They keep talking about StarCraft.
Well, I think we all want to play StarCraft.
What is?
There are other games to play. Exactly.
Also StarCraft.
Why does it sound so familiar?
So our first clinical trial is aimed at people with
Okay, yeah,
paraplegia or
I've seen some.
tetraplegia,
I've
so cervical
probably seen
spinal
some
cord
gameplay
injury.
of
We're
StarCraft.
going to enroll, we plan to enroll a small number of patients to make sure the device is safe and that it works in that case.
Yeah, so actually, just to elaborate on that, if somebody is like a severe spinal cord injury, to the degree that they have very limited control even over their facial muscles, then with this implant, you can actually think just by thinking, you can output words, and you can type, and you can control a computer, control a phone, and which is pretty wild. And I think something that's very exciting as a long-term application is if you can sense what somebody's trying to do with their limbs, what they want to do with their limbs, then you can actually do a second implant that's at the base of the spine or wherever, just after where the spinal injury occurred, and you can create a neural shunt. So I think long-term, I'm confident that long-term it will be possible to restore somebody's full body motion. So if somebody even has a severed spine, they will be able to walk again. They will be able to use their hands. And like when you have a severed spinal cord,
I always wondered if
broken
everybody
bones.
from Neuralink's team also agrees with that statement, because that neurosurgeon that's sitting to his left, I mean, just by judging by his eyebrows, because he's wearing a face mask, he looks a little skeptical about the broken nerve, or spinal cord is completely snapped, and he's saying that using Neuralink, you would be able to, that person would be able to walk again. So I wonder if everybody's on board with that, or everybody. Some people might be a little skeptical, like the neurosurgeon guy, but yeah.
And assembly team, so actually making the devices and designing the seal. So yeah, the body's not a friendly place to be. So what we do is basically create an accelerated test chamber that can mimic the conditions that the devices will see in the body, and basically test the devices at as fast as accelerated rate as we can. At this time, we're limited temperature-wise by some of the electronics components, but basically we can test subsystems to mimic the environment in the body. And by that, we've brought some devices in the test right now to almost a year, and all the implant.
Here, let's try this.
Prior to these implants,
I have no clue if this will even work.
In the tester to validate it. And yeah, so there's obviously chemical things attacking the implant. There's pressure. There's mechanical shock and vibration. So all of these things are part of it. And yeah, I think one of the things that really helps is having everything insourced in-house. So we have the capability to deposit thin layers of metal. We have the capability to weld glass and machine micron scale with lasers, and yeah, we have all the tools in house to be able to design any sort of sealing and enclosure packaging that we need to do.
Yeah, and if you were the third viewer, I don't know who the third viewer is, but this is my first time on YouTube Live, so I'm just testing everything out.
Yes, I think in the future you'll be able to save and replay memories. I mean, this is obviously sounding increasingly like a Black Mirror episode, but well, I guess it's pretty good predicting. But yeah, essentially, if you have a whole brain interface, everything that's encoded in memory, you could upload. You could basically store your memories as a backup and restore the memories.
But where?
And ultimately, you could potentially download them into a new body or into a robot body. The future is going to be weird.
I don't know if you guys caught that, but he said you could basically save memories and replay them in your head and save them and possibly transfer them to a different body, which would it just be saved in your head? Hey, what's up, Malone Money Mindset? What's good? We're just watching the Neuralink progress update for 2020. And this is my first time doing a stream. I just thought it'd be cool, test it out. And this, I found out yesterday they were doing this, so I'd give it a shot.
To make choices, to participate in our projects. As you see, sometimes they choose not to participate, and that's okay. That's where our animals are happy.
So what they did in the beginning was they had 3 different pigs that they brought up into on the camera, and what the pigs were doing is they had one with no Neuralink chip, they had one that had a Neuralink chip and was removed, and then they had a pig that had a Neuralink chip in his head, or her head, sorry, for 2 months, and they were all, you know, very similar in activity. But what they did with the pig in the middle that had the brain chip currently is that they could show you how they could, you know, read and see the signals the brain was getting through the Nerlink chip. So anytime the snout was on like a piece of hay or was eating like treats, they could see the signals going through the brain. And then they also showed like a clip of them on a treadmill, and they were narrowing down how a pig moves throughout the joints, and then they could like predict every movement. So it was kind of cool. A little weird at first, but kind of cool.
For developing the device.
Several. Yep, we use several different types of programming languages. So for chip development, a lot of Verilog for doing low-level programming at the kind of the register transfer level.
So what they did earlier today is they sent out their Twitter site said, hey, if you have any questions, send out your questions. And I sent one out with my one of the questions I had in my video about Neuralink. It was, I'll just read it. It said, hashtag ask Neuralink. Will there be a possibility for the brain chip to download certain chemicals or programs that could help combat infectious diseases or viruses such as the COVID-19 virus and in real time? And then I followed it up with, to a point where there would be no pandemics ever recurring. So, I mean, I thought it was a pretty relevant question for the time right now, obviously. So I got high hopes, but not too high, because I don't expect them to answer it.
What kind of programming languages and tech stacks are you using over there?
I mean, sort of just reiterating what DJ said, sort of doesn't matter. Like specifically for us, it's just real-time low-level platform, C++, some Java and Python scripts. But really, those are more just like pragmatic choices to essentially optimize for getting like productive work done. So it doesn't really matter what your background is or necessarily what the tools you use are. It's more just can you like accomplish things really quickly.
Awesome. This next question is from This Is Rex.
Damn, it wasn't from me.
Can this device be used to explain consciousness?
Ooh, that's a good one.
In the long term, of course.
I don't know if you guys can hear it. Explain consciousness is the question.
This is a really interesting question. I think the answer is yes. And I think one of the reasons that consciousness is so hard is because, like anything in physics, you're looking at a mapping from X to Y, where X is the neuronal correlate, so the thing that's happening physically, and then Y is this phenomenal state. And historically, we've been unable to observe the neuronal correlates very well. And unless it's in you, we've been unable to observe the phenomenal state. So as soon as neuroscientists are able to personally get these tools where they can see the correlates and they can have the experience, I think the hard problem will vanish very quickly.
What I find remarkable is that the universe started out as like quarks and leptons. We'll call it like, hydrogen. And then after a long time, well, what seems like a long time to us, the hydrogen became sentient. It gradually got more complex, and then we're basically hydrogen evolved, and somewhere along the way that hydrogen
evolved
and thought it was conscious.
I like the joke that.
That's a good question.
For long enough, it'll emit its own.
I just filmed a vlog for today. Hold on, I'll mute this guy. I actually was filming a vlog today. And we actually have an update that's going out. It was probably come out live tomorrow. I'm going to spend majority of the rest of the night finalizing the script to my Sunday video. I know I always say it comes on Sunday, but this time I'm going to actually try for it to come out on Sunday. So that vlog should come out tomorrow on Saturday, and then regular stock market video on Sunday, and we do have an update, which is pretty cool. I don't have the item with me because we're exchanging through the mail right now, but it is pretty cool. And a little teaser. It's somebody we know. It's one of our YouTube friends, so it should be pretty exciting. I mean, I started with a paperclip. I don't care if I go up, down, sideways, left, right. I'm just glad that, like I said in all the videos, movement, any kind of movement is good movement. So I'm glad to see that we are still moving, and I think this is another product that I think would spark up interest for multiple people to even trade further. So yeah, I'm excited. Towards the end, I know I've hinted towards this at multiple times, but I want to involve the subscribers in some way, shape, or form. The people that reach out to me, the people that are involved with my community. I feel like, towards the end, there's going to be some kind of, I'll say, surprise or prize maybe for a one lucky viewer, which is pretty cool. Sweet, man. Looking forward to see what you traded up to. Yeah, it's just like I said for that one where I was like, I said you guys wouldn't have been excited. You wouldn't have been excited for that, but this isn't in the electronics field, which is cool. I think electronics, even though it's like, booming and there's a lot of electronics out there, I feel like that's a younger niche, and I feel this new product could get me into the older people that are willing to trade even further, trade stuff that they don't use right now and could be valued at even more money. So even though money is not a thing, but towards the end it will be. I'm giving a lot of hints right now, so.
Fantastic. Anyone else? Dan, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's allowed us to make such fast progress in the last few months is the use of pigs as a model. And we started out choosing pigs because of very similar anatomy of their skull to humans, same thickness and similar kind of.
Yeah, they say humans are the human version of pigs. There's two pigs that stand on two legs. That's how science refers to humans. So anytime that they do testing, a lot of people or a lot of scientists have moved to using it on pigs instead of other things like mice or monkeys, because for some reason the anatomy of those animals react differently than what a pig does, because a pig, I guess, moves more similar with us, which I didn't know until Neuralink. So
amazingly good welfare.
Yeah,
Seems very happy about food.
Yeah, it's easy to make pigs happy. Basically, they love food. Pigs really love food. This is a true thing about pigs. Give them like sort of.
To be honest, I don't know if I'm going to be live streaming for the whole rest of the progress update. Again, this was just like a test. I've never done a live stream before, so this was one for me to see how it works, get the user interface down. Two, to check out this. I am going to watch this through the whole thing, but I did want to just overall see how this worked. Really interesting. I had no idea. But yeah, the pig thing is pretty weird. I think Joe Rogan had talked about it for a little bit too.
Pigs, they bustle around quite a lot, and they bump into things, and they headbutt each other at times, and they're pretty animated. So if the device is lasting in the pig, as it lasted there for 2 months, and still going strong, then that's a good sign that the device is robust for people.
Yeah, that's got a good point.
One common theme that's
I wanted to say this in one of my videos, but I thought it would have been too out there. Elon had hinted at this earlier in the broadcast, that he's like, we've narrowed it down to small sizes of the chip, the actual physical size of the chip. And he goes, I could have it in my head right now and you guys wouldn't even know it. And then he made a joke and said, well, maybe I do. And I always thought, because he did say this, he said, whoever, like the first available one that is, safety regulated, he said he would be the first one to do it. Which I have, I don't know what the correct term is right now, but I made a thesis, I guess, that he actually has one in his head right now. I know it's a little far out there, but I feel like that's something he would do.
device electronics itself, I think will not be very expensive because it actually does use a lot of the parts that are made in extremely high volume in tens of millions of units for smartphones as well as and smartwatches and wearables in general.
Great. So here's another question about the device. What does the architecture look like? Is it CPU, ARM CPU? What's going on inside the device that you could talk about, DJ?
I can talk a little bit about the digital architecture. It's fully custom. One of the most difficult challenges, I think, of building an implant is the energy density. So the more electrodes you record from, the more energy you're going to be consuming. And so there was nothing commercial out there. So there's an analog front end that's able to amplify these really small signals, like microvolt range.
I got 3 different things that I have to check. I got the screen up here, this screen,
exactly
and that screen, and then I have my phone checking on things on Twitter. So
things, and so that's why we had to build a full.
If you see me looking around, it's
and so there's really
there's
nothing out,
don't get freaked out.
There. It's designed specifically to record signals from the brain, and anything else would just be wasting energy.
Yeah. So the thing that I would add to that is so there are obviously elements that we customize from ground up, like our neural amplifiers and some of the algorithms that we develop. But a lot of the other systems around it are really borrowing from parts that are.
Malone Money Mindset. Tell me if you can actually hear them, because that is a question I did have. I didn't know if the internal mic of the the computer would pick it up well enough. So if that is just annoying, I'll just turn it off right now, because there's no sense of just blaring your guys' ears. All right, cool.
Really create these devices.
Here, I'll show you what it looks like.
So here's another question about the integrity of the device, more from a mechanical perspective. So you're replacing a piece of bone and replacing it with an implant. And then the person is going to take that home. How does the integrity of the device fare compared to, I don't know, bone or something similar?
Sure. Well, I think Matt's probably replaced a lot of pieces of skull with plastic and other materials. So I don't know if you can talk about some of those.
Yeah, that's another cool thing, is that a lot of people are skeptical on a bunch of things that they're doing, and they do have like a top neurosurgeon that is on the board and works with them day in and day out. And he's like, yeah, like there's regular surgeries that they just put regular stuff on. They were saying when they put the skin back over the chip, there's people talking about, well, you guys are just super gluing it, and he's like, yeah, we do. Super glue goes on a lot of surgeries already. So so right now, I mean, anything I know, I'm a Elon fanboy anyway. So, but right now, any question that has been brought up has been pretty well, responded to by the whole team.
I think it's clear that the implants are, have been going for a few months, still going strong, despite a lot of vigorous activity from the pig. And it's difficult. You can't just explain to the pig, hey, you've got an implant in your head, why don't you take care of it? So it's got to be robust against, a lot of head impacts, essentially. So, I think maybe one of the things that isn't super obvious is that the implant itself is attached to the skull, but the electrodes have long threads. So you can have quite a lot of movement, relative movement between the brain and the skull without putting attention on the electrodes that are inserted in the cortex. So, well, let's see. With that, maybe a couple more questions, or if anybody wants to make some comments, and then we'll call it a day.
So I just want to add to
all right, I'll just stream it to the end.
So the thread is actually also in the brain, also because of the thinness, and they're actually very flexible. And so as the pig is moving around and banging your head, the threads actually move with the brain, even the normal pulsation of the brain, and that help minimize stress within the brain tissue also, and that has a long-term impact on the functionality of the device.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard comments on how strong the actual wires are themselves, not just the chip, because obviously the chip's got to be strong, but if you think about, yeah, if like the brain's going to be moving around, how strong are the actual wires? Because Low Money Minds, I don't know if you heard, but the wires is, so they say it's a strand of hair is like 100 microdes, and the wire for the brain chip is 5, so it's divided by 5.
So my background is in visual neuroscience, and one of the things I think has great potential for the Neuralink is to provide a visual prosthesis for people who have retinal injury or blindness through eye injury. You can essentially plug a camera directly into the visual cortex and stimulate with an enormous array of thousands or maybe tens of thousands of electrodes to recreate a visual image. And in time, perhaps you can use that same technology in people who haven't lost vision to produce some kind of heads-up display, something like Terminator or something.
Wonderful.
In fact, it's worth saying that like over time we could actually give somebody supervision. Like you could have like ultraviolet or infrared.
Here, you can kind of see the pigs in the. Oh man, it just switched. But I was going to show you the pigs in their pig pen.
Sensors that
you can kind of see the green fence behind them. That's where the pigs are being held. And that girl, nurse, you can kind of see them. They took the pigs away, but they were all there for a little bit.
Effort to put your thoughts into a set of words, and it comes out completely compressed. So being able to do that seamlessly without being able to compress it with all the mechanisms would be great.
Yeah, it's like just I'm sorry to add further to that. In fact, when I did the Wait But Why article, I think Tim thought I said consensual telepathy. I said conceptual telepathy. I would presume it would be consensual.
Consensual.
Because you definitely don't want just people, sending stuff into your brain without your consent. But a lot of our brain thought capacity goes into compressing our thoughts into words. And then you think of like the data rate of words. Words are very slow, very low data rate. And we're putting a tremendous amount of mental energy into compressing the concepts and thoughts in our head into words, and then slowly talking. Speech is so very, very slow. And we could actually send the true thoughts. That we can actually have far better communication because we can convey the actual concepts, the actual thoughts, uncompressed to somebody else.
So non-linguistic, consensual, and conceptual.
Yes, exactly. Non-linguistic, consensual.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna start wrapping it up here because I got to start working on that vlog for tomorrow. But this was cool. I just wanted to see what the whole Neuralink progress update was for the 2020 year. I think it's going to be awesome. I expect a video over Neuralink to come out soon as the update. I know we spoke on some things over here, but yeah, again, this was just a test to see if this all worked. This is exciting. Anyways, thanks for watching Malone Money Mindset. That was awesome. Great interaction. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.